capturing the moon is a really difficult task. It's a really bright source of light in a very dark background. So one way of capturing the moon is just trial and error. It takes time, it's tedious, and it's not very efficient. So I'll show you two different ways you can capture the moon without any trial and error in one shot, at max 2 shots. So let's get started. Of course, to capture the moon you will need a tele lens, and I'll be using this cheap 75 to 300 mm lens. On the tele side, its widest aperture is f5.6, so I have to choose my settings from the table accordingly. One more tip, so this is 300 mm lens. On my crop body it will be equivalent to 300 into 1.6, 480 millimeters. So my shutter speed must be faster than 1 by 480 or around 1 by 500, or else I will introduce camera shake or I have to use tripod. For the first method I will use an app, EOP, which is available on Play Store as well as iTunes. It has an inbuilt EV table and EV chart. You can use any other app you want, or even better, if you can print out the EV table and chart and keep it with you all the time, that's quite good. So let's open up the app.
Okay, let's go to the app. Let's go to EV table and chart. Open up the chart. So we want to be in the moon column. Tonight is a full moon night with the moon quite bright and high. A full moon at an altitude of more than 40 degrees around EV50. So all we need to do is to go back to the EV table, select the ISO we want, go to the EV15, and our lens is f5.6. So 1 by 1000. So the setting is at ISO 100, aperture of f5.6. We need a shutter speed of 1 by 1000. So let's test it out. Okay, that is absolutely perfect. So this is directly from the camera. Of course, you can take it into Photoshop and apply some filtering, some sharpening, and it will look even better.
The second method relies on what is known as the sunny 16 rule. So what the rule says is, on a bright sunny day, to get a proper exposure, all you need to do is take your aperture to f16 and set your shutter speed to the reciprocal of your ISO. That is, if your ISO is 100, your shutter speed should be 1 by 100. Actually, it should be rounded to the nearest top, so it should be 1 by 125. But that is a triviality you can ignore. So if you have an ISO of 400, your shutter speed should be 1 by 400. And a sunny day has an EV of 15. So basically that can be an anchor point, and from there you can choose the setting for any other EV value just by changing the three settings: the aperture, ISO, and the shutter speed. I'll show you how. As per sunny 16 rule, our aperture should be f16, ISO 100, and the shutter speed should be 1 by 100, which is rounded to the nearest top at 1 by 125. But the problem is, at this shutter speed I will introduce shakes because the lens is quite tele and I need a faster shutter without affecting the exposure. So it's quite easy. All I need to do is increase the shutter speed. Okay, I'm 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, I took it up to 1 by 500 and I noticed that I turned the wheel 6 times. And I know from the settings of the camera that every 3 turns the exposure changes by 1 stop. So I basically reduced the shutter speed by 2 stops. So I have 2 stops less light. So I need to change the aperture or the ISO in such a way that I compensate for it. So one way I can compensate is open up the aperture or stop down the aperture by 2 stops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So at this setting, I'm sure that the camera will capture the moon perfectly. So let's try.
Of course, this time also the exposure is perfect. That's not a big surprise because it's basically the same EV15 but at a different set of settings.
Now let's say that the EV value of the moon is not 15, let's say it's 13. So what should you do? So let's start with the anchor point, that is the Sunny 16 rule. Go to F16, ISO 100, and we'll be at 125. So this is EV15. So let's say that the current scene has an EV of 13. So 13 is 2 stops less than 15. Basically what it means is that the scene is having 2 stops less light. So all we need to do is change the settings of the camera in such a way that it gets 2 stops more light. So one way is to slow the shutter speed by 2 stops, open up the aperture by 2 stops, or increase the ISO by 2 stops. So I think what I will do is I'll say increase the ISO by 2 stops, 1, 2. So now this is set for EV13, but again I may not like this shutter speed of 1 by 125. I may need more shutter speed. So again I'll do the same trick. Let's say I want 1 by 500 again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I reduce the shutter speed by 2 stops. To compensate, I have to change either the aperture or the ISO. So I don't want to increase the ISO 2 more stops, it will be too noisy. So let's open up the aperture by 2 stops, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So now this is set for EV13. I didn't take a look at the EV table or EV chart. So if you know this EV of the scene, you can set your camera taking the Sunny 16 as an anchor point.
I hope the video is useful to you. If you have any feedback or suggestions or questions, please put them in the comment section. Thank you.